Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson.
How's it going, y'all?
Alan Seiler.
You didn't do a quote.
I know, I blanked.
I have a quote. Here's my quote.
Okay.
Okay.
What a cute idea.
And Veronica Dashel.
Hi. I quoted myself.
Yes, you did.
I love that. That's cool.
So, hey guys, you guys seen any good movies lately?
No, actually.
No. Yeah.
We're here today to talk about the first Star Trek movie in 9 years, the first Paramount Plus Star Trek streaming movie everyone's been waiting for, Star Trek Section 31.
Yeah,
and we will be spoiling over the course of this conversation. So if you've not seen it, be warned, we will be dropping spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
I want to get a couple of comments in
Wow.
before we start. The first one is from our buddy Bill Lamond over in the UK, who says he's joining us on time for a change. Nice to have you, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
And
Hey, Bill.
Matt Sweatman, our good buddy Matt Sweatman, says, "All right, now don't hold back.
We won't.
Don't worry, Matt.
Yeah, you're in for something tonight. I don't know exactly what, but you're gonna get
Because
it.
we've been holding back since Friday. Because we're all friends across social medias, and so we've not even talked on social media about what this is. We haven't shared our opinions. Veronica and I live together, and it wasn't until this evening that opinions about this movie started. I just can't hold them. It's been days.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to actually talk about this thing.
Well, let's start off with the positive. Who loved this movie?
Can't say that.
All right, that didn't take
I
long.
gotta figure.
I
Okay.
enjoyed parts of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say there were good things about it.
Yeah.
I liked Rachel Garrett.
Yeah, oh, well, kind of. We're gonna get into that too.
Yeah.
I thought for the most part the production was fantastic. This thing looked really great. All the characters were good. The sets were amazing. The effects were good. The location shooting was really, really beautiful. So on a production side, I thought that this was really, really nice.
Yeah, I don't hate this movie. I think it's
Yeah,
bad.
I don't hate it.
But I think it's bad in kind of the same way like Way to Eden or Spock's Brain are bad. Like it's fun to watch. It's not like Picard season 2 or the Discovery Mirror Universe arc where I have a hard time sitting through it. I've watched this like 5 times now. I've watched it enough times that Veronica came in one day and said, "This again?"
I've seen it 4, I think.
Yeah, I think it's fun to watch. But what frustrates me and angers me is what it's not, and we'll get into that. But Keith, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't objectively hate it. If somebody wanted to watch it again, I could sit down and watch it again. I'm like you. I think I'm more sad about what it was not than what it was, because so much of I was just sitting there going, gosh, this is cliched. This doesn't add anything. Not that it was so much bad, but so many times I thought I was watching another movie. We talked about this last week, and I'm trying to be very, very careful behind labeling something not Star Trek, even though it didn't feel like Star Trek, but we'll get to that. It was just okay. And we'll get to this in more detail. Every now and then, Michelle and Omari, I felt like they were in a different movie, and then I wanted to be in that movie that I think they were in. So, yeah, it was just okay. It was just okay. I have no desire. I guess for me, the summary is like you said, Charles. I have no desire to ever watch season 2 of Picard again, ever, and that's very rare for me with Star Trek. This one, it's not that I don't have that I will actively avoid it. I just don't care about it. And I guess that's the thing. I'm incredibly neutral on this thing.
Yeah, I agree with that totally.
Yeah, I think if this was just a low budget schlocky sci-fi movie that I'd found on Tubi one night, I'd be posting on Facebook like, "Hey guys, have you heard about this movie? It's kind of fun. Check it out. Give them some support." But the fact that it's the first Star Trek movie of any kind in 9 years, the first Star Trek streaming movie, and I don't think that it rises to that task, which is frustrating because I've seen this same production team make far more cinematic products on a television series with the same director, the same producer. I mean, we've said this before, like the first 2 hours of Discovery, I mean, that was one of the most cinematic and more epic Star Trek productions that's ever been. This wasn't close to that. Like the season 3 premiere when Burnham came to the future and they filmed it in Iceland, and that looked more cinematic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you remember the season 2 finale when they had the fight scene? It was a stupid episode. I couldn't stand that episode. But they had the Giorgio fight scene where the gravity was going weird, and they built a corridor that could rotate, and they're up and down the wall fighting. That was a better fight scene than anything in this movie. Like, I've seen this just recently. The finale of Discovery was a better movie than this movie.
Yes.
But they had a minecart fight scene on this movie, whatever that cart was.
I'd forgotten about that.
A what?
Yeah. The thing they were like, the minecart where they were on the platform. They were fighting on the platform that went on for like 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That had to have gone from one planet to another. It lasted so long. But my general feeling about this is that all of the action scenes, all of the fighting scenes were too long. I just don't think any of them needed to be as long as they were.
Agreed. Agreed. And I've heard that by a lot of other people too. I know we'll summarize later, but do y'all think, because I've heard this thing, some people said if this had been a TV series like it was originally planned to be, instead of the movie, it would have been better. But what I saw in this movie, I don't think it would work in the series, honestly. I mean, because like some people said, we didn't get to know the characters well enough because it was a 90-minute movie. I don't know about that.
Yes. Well, here's what I think. And I thought this the second time I saw this. I really honestly feel like this is the first maybe 3 episodes of what they were planning that would go to series. And they condensed each one of them. So a normal episode would be around 50 minutes. They condensed each one of those segments to about 30 minutes to make a 90-minute film. So I think that a lot of the character stuff that we would have gotten had this been a series did not make it into the final film.
So you think as a series, it probably would have played better then?
Oh, yes. I definitely think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Crossing the Streams. I'm sorry. Crossing the Streams. It reminds me of how the network forced Firefly, the series, to be aired, where it came right in the middle of the action. That was a good series, but there was a lot of confusion for that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think part of the problem with this one, I think they kept too much, and I don't know this for a fact, but I mean, it feels like chapters. You know what I mean? They even put episode titles up there, and I think there is stuff that, like, if you're in a series and you'd find out along the way of a series that one of us is a traitor, who could it be? But you've had episodes to care about these characters. I think that works better than what they did here. But it's also just weird tonal shifts. Like, it felt like it was the intro with Giorgio was a different movie than the rest of the movie.
You know what it felt like? Hunger Games.
Yeah.
It was 100% the Hunger Games.
Yes.
So it did feel like a different movie.
I just listened to a review where they said who brought Hunger Games in the Star Trek.
Right.
Interesting.
That was the first thing that I said when they started when we started watching the episode. I was like, they had the Hunger Games? What?
Right.
It's so interesting that that's the method that apparently the Terran Empire uses to select the emperor of an entire galactic empire.
And it's stupid the way that they pick the people.
It makes no sense.
No, because if you've seen any Mirror Universe episode, the people in the Mirror Universe are not going to go along with that. They're going to stab her as soon as they get a chance because she's 16 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that, and that's why I do agree with Alan that I think a series probably would have been better. But at the same time, some of their choices, even if expanded to a series, I don't know if I would have liked, like that. The cyborg guy, I don't think I really cared. I don't think I want to see any more of him, even though we didn't see it. Some of these characters and their choices, I don't know if I'd even care about in the series. It's ironic, Alan. I think it was Alan who said, "Find something you like." Ironically, the only part of this whole movie that I was like, "Wow, that at least looked good and was dramatic," was the opening, and that wasn't. I didn't like the messaging or what they were doing with her, basically Hunger Gaming herself to the Empire. But it looked cool when everybody teleported in and they bowed to her. But you know what I'm thinking about? You guys are saying that's that great production value of Discovery. Yeah, like when the first Giorgio on the Planet with Michael Burnham, because it looked cool, but the whole time I was like, I don't buy this, but it looked kind of cool. Right. My wife was asleep on and off, and she woke up, and then she was like, she's not going to, because you saw it coming from a mile away when she started babbling about the Hunger Games stuff, and she's like, she's not going to, and yep, she is, and then next thing she kills her whole family. Okay. Another thing with that, real quick, which is weird. Now, this is very, very, very subjective. Very subjective. I never bought Giorgio's redemption arc in the series in the first place. That's me personally. I know Star Trek is about redemption. I know that. But there are some people who are so horrible that even if they become better, I just don't buy I never bought what Giorgio became, even in the series toward the end. I just don't buy it on that level. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to another podcast review today, and they made a good point. They were like, even if I bought that, why the heck did they start out with something that pretty much made me hate her again and make it even harder for me to buy her redemption? Because they're like, she killed her little brother and her parents. Now you want me to go back on the redemption arc? He's like, no. Right. So I kind of agree. That was totally bad.
Yeah.
And then when you find her in the future, she's the first scene, she's eating an eyeball.
Eyeball.
I know you want to join Section 31 because you're bored of this. You want back in the action. But you never see her bored. They don't.
She doesn't look bored.
Everything in this movie is they just tell you. They have a scene where they freeze frame on all the characters, and she tells you who they are. This guy's dumb. Yeah. He's all muscle. And then they have another scene where they all introduce themselves. Like that. Right. These aren't hard things to set up. Like, just open with him on a mission. Let us see that this guy's dumb and he's all muscle. Like, we can figure that out.
Right. It's not that hard to figure out. Yeah. Okay. So there's like 800 things that I want to say in response to just what you just said. But the main thing that I'm thinking of is my whole idea about what this was going to be. The first time we ever heard that we were going to get a Section 31, and this is my fault. It's my own perception and expectation. When we first found out that we were going to get a Section 31 series, which was, I don't know how many years ago. Mm-hmm. And then it was being turned into a movie. I thought this was going to be about Section 31.
Right.
I didn't know that it was going to be, people on a mission out in the field who were just like, now I'm blanking on
like contractors.
Right. Like contractors. But I'm thinking of the Suicide Squad.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that.
It's exactly Suicide Squad. But I just thought it was going to be about the intricacy of the organization,
Yeah,
so,
I think it's interesting you say that, Alan, because I've heard so many comparisons, all unfavorable. I've heard Hunger Games, Suicide Squad, and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, totally Guardians. Totally Guardians.
Oh, yeah.
Better than others. Yeah.
It wants to be Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like really an asylum version of Guardians of the Galaxy, because it's not funny. Guardians of the Galaxy is funny and charming.
Yes.
Right. And that's one thing that I can't believe about this movie. Like I can understand why there's weird production problems. They started it 6 years ago. There was a pandemic. The main character won an Emmy or an Oscar, and became too popular. They had to shift to a movie. They had to film it during a writer's strike, so they couldn't do rewrites on set. The streaming service that commissioned it had a financial collapse and was sold to the highest bidder while they're in post-production. I would love to, 20 years from now, hear an honest account of the making of this movie. But what I don't get is why it's poorly written, because it's not funny, for instance. And I was just saying this to Veronica earlier. Mm-hmm. There's never been more Star Trek writers than there are now. They literally have a team of Star Trek writers up until just recently whose job it was to write Star Trek comedy. You can't have Mike McMahon or somebody on his team do a pass on this script and make the jokes funny.
Yeah. I agree.
Point. Okay.
Well, go ahead, Alan.
We got a whole bunch of comments. So
awesome.
I just want to get some. Yeah. First of all, I said that Bill was from the UK. I don't know where the hell I got that idea from, but apparently he's from Virginia. So sorry, Bill.
Sorry,
Mark
mate.
Says, I did not watch this movie for fear that my view would have been the one that pushed it over the top and a sequel would be made.
Well, don't worry about it, Mark.
Oh my God. I love that. My buddy Sharon, who I used to be in a band with, who is a great guitarist and a very, very great singer, says hi. She's joining us tonight. She was very excited they were very excited about our review. Damn it, I cannot get that right. They, never mind. I'm going to move on.
They're probably laughing their heads off right now, Alan.
Oh my God.
Welcome, Sharon. Thanks for
I
joining.
love you, Sharon, just so you know, and I know you know that. Anyway, Sharon said that watched it twice, and hang on, and they came in at different times. There were things I liked and things that wore on my nerves a bit.
Yeah.
Longer fight scenes equal less dialogue.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
That was
right.
padded.
Elaine Sweatman says, I enjoyed it. It was a fun sci-fi movie, just not really Trek. But maybe that was the whole point. I mean, that makes sense.
We'll get into that, but
yeah, we definitely will.
Yeah.
And Matt Sweatman says, it reminds me of several of the 80s space movies that came out after the success of Star Wars. Right.
Yeah, we can make a list. Ice Pirates.
Yeah. Oh, God. Elaine says, I did think the way it ended, it was kind of open-ended. Is there any talk about another movie at all? We're going to get into that too.
Yeah.
So far, no. And then Mark says, a mass murdering cannibal is not my idea of a hero, let alone a series lead. And look, luckily, Sharon is laughing at me. Thank goodness.
Now, real quick, I think very interesting. I address what Mark said. Because Mark, if I remember correctly, in our Facebook group, you posted that you just don't like the existence of Section 31. Period. I on record is I like the idea of Section 31, but as initially introduced in DS9. Again, when it became a big organization with badges and ships and official Starfleet officers attached to it, okay, that's a little weird for me. But I think Mark makes the point I've heard other people say, if nothing else, and like Charles, you're saying, they show her eating an eyeball. They show her killing her family, including her younger brother. And then we're supposed to relatively quickly kind of see her hanging out at like the cabaret in pre-World War II Germany, chilling out. It's like I fundamentally did not like Giorgio and how she was presented in this movie, period. I didn't buy her. I didn't buy that arc. And as you said, it's not that the jokes were bad. I don't know why this movie was inserting jokes anyway. That's not Section 31 to me. And so it just didn't work for it. Also, again, this is fundamental. This is very subjective. This woman was over an empire that was hundreds of billions of people, maybe. She's killed whole planets. I mean, they said they were the most immoral people known in history. And she had the power of a god. Now she's running a little bitty kind of Star Wars cantina in space. There's no way the Giorgio I saw, I don't care what her redemption arc, she wouldn't be satisfied being that. She was like somebody from a bad World War II movie. She'd be running, what's that Orion Syndicate that lady was running? You guys talk,
right,
you know,
the Emerald
villain?
Chain.
Oh, the Emerald Chain.
Yeah. So I thought she was too small, no matter what she redeemed or not. So I just didn't buy the character.
I mean, yeah, but sometimes people who are large end up in small circumstances. The whole point of the movie was that somebody recognizes that and wants to help her move out of that. You want to be large, and we're going to help you get there. And we know that you want to do that. That's why you're going to come with us and do our thing.
Yeah, I agree. Really, but given who she was, I didn't think she needed anybody for that. I really think Giorgio.
No. I'm not saying she needed somebody. I'm just saying that's why they came to her.
That was the point they were trying to do. Yeah.
And one really quick thing about the cabaret. My big issue with this, and with a lot of sci-fi, is that pop music, quote unquote pop music, in the future or from an alien never sounds futuristic or alien. Do something different. Do something that sounds like it's from the future and being sung by a weird alien person. That's all I want.
That was in my notes.
And one of the songs has the lyrics, "Hit me up on my phone," and we're in the far corner of the galaxy in the 24th century. Do something creative. And I mean, like Star Wars did it, and you have an alien puppet singing in an alien language. Doctor Who's done it where you're in the future, but they're singing a modern day song in the style of the 40s or something like that. Or if you don't know what to do, have her sing Faith of the Heart, and we'll all think it's funny, and you can get on with your scene.
Faith of the Heart. Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Right?
There was just a musical episode. How hard is it to come up with the song?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, my buddy Sharon says the cabaret. What the AF was up with that music? Operatic arias mixed with bad 21st. Well, I'll tell you what's up with that. They're trying to be that stupid movie with that weird alien girl and
The Fifth Element.
Fifth Element. Thank you. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
Right. But in the Fifth Element, they had her an alien singing opera and did weird things to her voice that humans can't do. So there was something clever about it.
Right. Okay, I'm getting all worked up now.
Now on the topic of like the fact that she's evil and she's a hero, I think you can do that. One of my favorite Star Trek characters used to essentially be a KGB torture expert and was never particularly repetitive during the show. Garrick relished who he was, and we all love him. And similarly, they did an arc with Gul Dukat where at one point, remember he was flying around on the bird of prey, and him and Kira started teaming up, and it became almost like a buddy thing, but then it wasn't because he's evil, right? And like you could do that sort of a thing. I think that can work. And I actually found Georgiou, I think she was the most likable I've ever found her in this. I've never particularly been a fan of that character. I liked her a bit better in season 3. I thought she grew a little bit, but I thought here I enjoyed watching her more than I ever have before.
I mean, come on. Let's just say that Michelle Yeoh was phenomenal in this. Whatever you have to say, whatever you have to say about the movie, about the writing, about the production, anything, Michelle Yeoh was great. But I just want to make that a known thing.
Okay, I'll say this way because this is. Go ahead, Ron.
I have one very important thing to add.
Yes,
her fake name was Veronica.
In French.
Right. Veronique.
Veronique. Yeah.
Chuck,
the double.
Chuck thought I was lying, but I was right.
No, because you said that after a scene where they didn't say that, and then when I saw that they did say that in a different scene, I told you.
I told you.
And I told you too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And this is really petty, but it almost feels like they were reading manuals on how to make something, because I almost got like Jesus, what's the movie, Casablanca, that wartime cabaret. So even when they named her Veronique, I was like, of course she's Veronique. I mean, why not French? You and Alan said something very interesting. That's what's very wild. I think Michelle Yeoh was good. I didn't like the role, but that's completely. Alan, she said that's completely different. I didn't like how they wrote her, but she was good as they wrote her. You know what I mean? That's just really weird. She was too. I hate to say this, Charles. She was too likable for what I wanted her to be, and she cracked jokes too many times. Again, for who I saw her. Then, like I'll just go back to what this other podcast. They showed her. They started off showing her kill her entire family, including her little brother, burning her best friend, probably lover, on the side with a whatever hot sword, treating him like a slave lapdog for decades, eating an eyeball, and then next thing you know, she's cracking jokes. It did not work for me, but she's cool. I like her.
I'm just saying, people who eat eyeballs doesn't mean they can't be funny.
Well, and the thing is,
now badly written jokes mean they can't be funny, but
right. Yeah, and the thing is, like the San, who is sort of set up as the villain of this story, is the most sympathetic character in the movie.
Yeah,
because like you say, Keith,
Yeah.
He refused to kill his family. His village was burned down. That his girlfriend burned off his face and kept him as a slave for 40 years. And he had to fake his own death to get away. I have a hard time cheering when he dies.
I agree. Also, and forgive us, guys, we're jumping around because now that you mentioned Sean Charles, one of the problems I had, and this is like I'm going back to what Alan said now. Really, it's like there was a whole bunch of movies and series they crammed into one 90-minute show. At the end, I literally wrote, "What WTF?" When when they showed the flashback when she thought he killed himself, right? And she starts crying and she goes, "I refuse to let you die." And even my wife, this is funny, my wife is asleep and she kept waking up and she goes, "What's going on?" And she goes, "This thing's still on?" And even she was like, "Wait a minute." She was like, "Wait," he walked in the room with his head bowed. He couldn't even look her in the face. And what I noticed was, if you'd written this better, what would have happened was when no one else was around, she would have been going to him for advice. She would have been saying, "What do you think?" They would have been hiding it. I didn't get that impression. She's been treating him like a straight up slave. And then when he dies, she's like, "I forbid you to die." What the heck? And then at the end,
well, yeah, like, because he's her top slave. Who's going to do all the stuff for her if he dies?
And it was weird because it was like she had these hidden. It was like he was reminding her of her soft side, but we didn't see that. So that didn't work. And then even at the end, I did not get when he started babbling. I still needed you to show me who I was, because she basically told him not to become a genocidal maniac. I don't know what was going on. I was completely messed up with that.
Stupid.
All right. Comment. Okay. Elaine says yes to Faith of the Heart. Oh, that would have made this movie so great.
Isn't that better?
Matt says even Unification Part 2 did futuristic bar. Yes. And I was going to say earlier, in Next Generation, there was a couple of times where we see actual or hear actual Klingon opera, and we have that lady in that bar that with 4 hands and the weird stuff coming out, and she's like something in Minota. But that sounded alien. Do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting too upset about this. Elaine says the whole cantina / casino / cabaret made me think of a bad Bond ripoff where Giorgio is the Madame villain. Matt says Giorgio ate Saru's people. Kind of hard to come back from that.
Agreed.
Yeah, here's
he ate Saru specifically.
Right. Mark says it was far easier for you as civilized men to behave like barbarians than it was for them as barbarians to behave like civilized men. Great quote.
Mirror, mirror. And I agree.
And Matt finishes up by saying, I was upset they killed off the Deltan too. Okay, I wanted to say that. Of the operatives, my 2 favorite, well, one's not an operative. My 2 favorite people, the ones that I kind of liked the most, were the Deltan and the Charon. And neither of them were in the movie for very much. And the Deltan got killed off. Yeah. And I was really kind of upset about that. I felt like that character actually had some potential. I didn't give a crap about the cyborg dude, and I didn't give a crap about whoever the guy was that recruited Giorgio, and I didn't give a crap about the shapeshifter dude. I just didn't give a shit about those people, pardon me. But the Deltan, I was like, this is cool. And what do you got to say, Keith? Keith?
Oh no, I'm sorry, guys. That was me. My network went down.
Oh, I thought you were like
able to hear me?
Exasperated.
No, my network went down. Sorry, my network.
But anyway, so my 2 favorite characters, or potentially favorite characters, were barely there.
They're trying to kill off members of the crew so that you there's stakes. They all might die. But they never give you a reason to care if any of them die.
No, you don't get invested in any of these characters in enough time to give a crap if they get offed. Yeah,
I was a little surprised. Agreed, Alan. Why would you introduce a Deltan and then kill her off? That could have been anybody. And then they even made the weird thing, like the Vulcan dude. That was a cybernetic body, right? That wasn't a
right.
Okay, they even hinted, which makes no sense. Right, but they even hinted that she was having an effect on the Vulcan, or that he was faking, because there was a scene where I didn't buy that. Maybe he was faking it.
Yeah, well, I mean, she like she's having an effect on the microscopic guy in a spaceship who's driving the Vulcan. But how is the microscopic guy in a spaceship driving a Vulcan going to be allured by this gigantic behemoth creature? You know what I mean?
I thought it didn't make any sense to me. Was dumb. I kind of like him. Dude. I mean, at least it's different.
Yeah, it was a big swing because they went with what I have to assume is a deliberately bad Irish accent.
Oh, it's so terrible.
It's like they told him, do your worst Irish accent while cackling like a hyena the whole movie. And then he's being driven. And also you're a spy and you're a cackling Vulcan. That's not blending in any place. But also it's being driven by this guy in a little spaceship that sounds like George Jetson's car when it flies around.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
God.
I love it.
And it's one of those things. It's absurd, and I don't think it works. I think it's a swing, but I like that they took a swing because going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, like it could, like the talking tree or the talking raccoon could not have worked and been an embarrassment. Those worked, and then this one didn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keith.
Agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick. I think we talk so much about canon, or being true to the end universe. I agree with you, Charles. And sometimes you want to take chances, but Vulcans aren't supposed to be laughing. That's kind of end of story. So that was like, why did they even write him like that? That makes no sense.
Right. If you're trying to pass maybe you're not trying to pass yourself off as Vulcan. So why use a Vulcan body? But if you are, act Vulcan. I keep wanting to cuss in this. I'm so sorry. Sharon says that she loved the Jamie Lee damn it. They loved the Jamie Lee Curtis cameo. Thought it was awesome. And I wonder how much Michelle Yeoh had to do with that. 100% everything to do with that. I am positive of that. Yeah. Positive about that. Mark says Attack of the 50-foot Delton. Yeah.
From that
Sharon says, anyone notice that San's face was scarred on the entire right side of his face, but Philippa only touched his face from just below his eye? Yeah, I did notice that.
At least in that instance, we don't know what happened the next 40 years.
Right. True.
She might have burned him all the time.
Right. And Bill's checking out. He said he'd only be able to stay about 8:30. Bill, it's nice to have you join us.
Good to have you.
And Sharon says George Jetson's car and is laughing at that. Elaine says she had everything everywhere all at once to do with Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's funnier than any of the lines in this movie.
Thank you. Exactly.
I mean, a lot of this film I thought was as cringeworthy as, like, we talked about this before with The Way to Eden, and a lot of it feels like 40-year-old dudes trying to write hippies, right? So you get a lot of the Herbert, and in this you get a lot of whatevs and meh and
meh
goblin and just like
I can't believe meh is still an expression centuries in the future.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And there was a Yo Mama joke at the end.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
That's true.
And I mean, we talked about this, like Alan, you pointed this out just recently. Like as far as we're talking about the Star Trek shows, like it would have been smarter to start off with something that brings everybody in, and then do something weird. And they've talked a lot about wanting to broaden the franchise, broaden the fan base. But to me, to broaden the fan base implies that you want to retain the existing fan base, right? So I mean, they have an opportunity here to do the first Star Trek movie in 9 years, the first Star Trek streaming movie, which they've been championing, and you had an opportunity to do just like throw a crowd pleaser out there, get everybody on your side, and then broaden the fan base. And to me, this is deliberately trying to alienate the fan base. Like, this is not aimed at Star Trek fans. Star Trek fans are not looking for this, but also who is. And if someone watches this and likes it, so I say I maybe I'm somebody out there. I love to see the Hunger Games, Suicide Squad, and Mission Impossible mashed up into a low budget schlocky sci-fi movie. And I'm like, great. And I want to watch another one of those. Where do I go in Star Trek? There's nothing else in Star Trek for that.
No. Charles, what you said is exactly right on. Because when somebody was asking me what I thought about it, as I said, they took all the things I have not liked about the Abrams verse, Kurtzman, Orsi, and the Discovery universe, but they took all the things I don't like and they compressed them into this movie. Because I try to be very careful to say it's not Star Trek, but it didn't feel like it was in the Star Trek world, even though it obviously was in the Star Trek world. And then they tried to kind of sort of remind us of Star Trek by, here we go again. Y'all know how I feel about needless callbacks and fan service and connections. Hey, here's Rachel Garrett that everybody loves. And here we go again. Section 31 is supposed to be clandestine. She's been officially attached to Section 31 by Starfleet. So they are openly acknowledging it. I have no idea why Rachel Garrett was in this movie. That name.
I have no idea why the name Section 31 was in this movie. Because they didn't do Section 31. Section 31... Sloan was plotting the end of civilizations to save the Federation. Yes. They crossed the border in this movie, which Starfleet officers have done plenty of times.
Right.
At one point, they punched a guy 2 times during an interrogation, which you're not supposed to do. But I mean, Archer did worse than that. And then he stuck his finger in the guy's nose. And that was like the worst things they did in this movie. But I think if Sloan had come to Bashir and been like, Doctor, to save the Federation, you have to stick your finger in the guy's nose. And Bashir was like, that is not what the Federation stands for. Like, that doesn't work. Like, that's not Section 31. I mean, this movie, I thought it was.
I agree.
It's a fun watch, but it says on the poster Star Trek and Section 31, and it's not either one of those things.
Yeah, either one of those. Yeah,
exactly. It did not have and that's what I meant. Which you expressed it perfectly. What I meant when I said this felt like all the worst tendencies of the movie since the Kurtzman and Orsi. Because you're right, this didn't feel like Section 31. It didn't feel like a different corner of Star Trek. It felt like a different aesthetic from start to finish, and then they slapped the name on it. Because like you guys. We never knew originally in DS9 if Sloan was crazy, straight up. We didn't know if he was crazy, if he was lying. Remember when they even tried to track him? They're like, well, there's a little room and a little building, and all I think Bashir saw was 2 big dudes. They're like, is that it? Is Section 31 3 people? But to your point, before it's all said and done, the guy was smooth. These people were incompetent on top of that. And that just makes
they're the alpha team, Keith. This is alpha team. This bunch of goobers is the Section 31 alpha team.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
That so opening funny. There. Oh, that was terrible.
It was a video game opening.
Yes.
It was for like Mission Impossible, the video game. Here's your. Okay, you want to get me started? They have a map of the Federation, right? With a blinking border that says Starfleet can't cross the border. And there's 3 Federation star bases on the wrong side of the border. Starbase 11 is right there. What do you mean Starfleet can't cross the border? Who's going to Starbase 11? And I'm 4 minutes into the movie at this point. This is after the Hunger Games to rule the Federation. You can't even do the map and make sure there's no Starfleet emblems on the other side of the flashing border.
Oh, this is great. This is great.
What is going on?
Oh my God, this is so fun.
This should have come out before Stellar Fest, and we could have discussed it there.
No, I gave.
We still can. Don't you worry.
Okay.
They could have rewritten this movie and made it a much better movie. Yeah, I told this Veronica on the way over here. But one change that I would do that I think would dramatically improve this movie is after the search for the mole. In the movie, they reveal that Fuzz is working for San. He's also evil. He wants to destroy everybody, right? The actual reveal should have been that San is an actual Sloan level Section 31 agent. He drops the accent. His mission is to get the Godsend and destroy the Beta Quadrant, which will take out the Romulan and Klingon empires.
Right.
So now our heroes have to decide if they're willing to risk their lives to save people. And this we've seen Starfleet officers do it before. We've never seen a bunch of goobers have to do it. But also it puts a moral debate into it. It gives them something to fight for. It gives us a reason to root for them. It puts Section 31 back into it. It puts Star Trek back into it. It solves that there's no real villain of this movie problem. And it gives a reason for there to be Rachel Garrett, because we know that Rachel Garrett will one day give her life fighting for her enemy.
Right.
And so it ties everything together. But they could have just rewritten the damn movie into a better movie. And what I don't understand is, like, we have seen much better work from these people. Like, we've seen more cinematic things. We've seen better written stuff. And I know that Kurtzman's going to get the blame for this. And some of that's his fault. And I'm sure he'll take the blame because he's the boss. But something else is going on with this movie because I've never seen something this bad come out of this production team. I've seen bad things that I didn't like, but this, and I mean, at times felt just incompetent.
I agree.
And I just want to say really quickly, Olatunde is one of the best directors that they have on modern Trek. And this was not his normal level. There wasn't any, I mean, he does so many really great visual things. Every time he directs, there's something really cool to look at. Even if it's just one scene, he does something really cool. And I just didn't get any of that from this. The most interesting thing was when the fight scene with the 2 characters out of phase with each other. That was a kind of a neat idea, but I just don't think it worked that well visually, you know?
And it went too long.
And it wasn't clever because everyone who's ever seen an out of phase thing on science fiction has said the same thing that Stargate SG-1 made a joke about 30 years ago. Why don't they fall through the floor? So what you do is have the dumb guy say, why don't they fall through the floor? And everyone else is like, moron, you can't phase through gravity plating. And you make a joke out of the fact that the dumb guy didn't know you can't phase through gravity plating, and it flips it. and it's clever, but they don't even try. And then her foot gets stuck in it. Her foot would become part of the wall.
Yeah. Okay. I want to move on to. I love seeing this side of you, man. This is great.
Let's move on.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Rachel Garrett, because this is a kind of important legacy character that they're bringing into this movie. And I think for the most part, she's done well. But then it's like all of a sudden they flip a switch and she's Chaos Goblin. And she's in the trash compactor, and she's like doing this little sing-songy nonsense about chaos, chaos, chaos. And I thought that was so dumb. I thought most of the time she was done well, and I thought that she could have been a really good presence in this film, but then they make her a joke.
Well, I agree. I read that as she's trying to be Chaos Goblin. So she's saying chaos, chaos, chaos to herself. That's how I read that. But
yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't catch that at all.
I thought that scene was fun.
Did you? Okay. Yeah, I fundamentally didn't see the point why her name was Rachel Garrett. She could have been any Starfleet person. And again, I make my comments about connections, needless callbacks. I think it was a needless callback for her. Also, again, the writing was inept, because they said more than once how, again, and I can't stand this kind of dumbing down of writing personally. They said several times in the movie how she wanted to be captain one day.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, we know she's going to be a captain. Like you said, Charles, don't tell us that. We know that. Just leave it alone. She's a Starfleet thing. Not that, oh, you do that, you didn't need that. So just needless.
I mean, the thing is that they wanted to add, they felt like they needed to add someone from Star Trek into this movie. So they picked Rachel Garrett.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
because the movie is pretty divorced from the Star Trek, which I don't even have a problem with. I think, I mean, outside the Federation, at least, I don't care that the Starfleet uniforms look wrong, because there's no Starfleet uniforms. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Chuck did point out that these did not look like modern day clothing, at least.
Yeah, at least. I mean, there's times in Star Trek Picard where it looked like Patrick Stewart just wore his own clothes onto camera. So at least this, they had, I thought, really good costuming. They all looked futuristic and sci-fi. And Rachel Garrett had, I mean, not Rachel Garrett, but Georgiou had like cool outfits. Yeah. And they had actually contracted with like a Parisian designer to do the outfits for her. And the background aliens I thought looked really good. I thought a lot of that kind of stuff really worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Whole bunch of comments. Matt Sweatman says, I would like a Section 31 series film that was serious and showed a competent / elite group that deep undercover made the show's history happen like it should. Matt Sweatman also says, like the piece with Klingons was still being developed. Maybe Section 31 might have played a role in that. Okay, good point. Elaine says, the extent of my knowledge of Section 31 is what I've seen in Enterprise. This was not that. Ooh, you've got some good stuff coming up.
Section 31 has been something different every time it has appeared.
Yes, exactly. That's so true. Sharon says, Star Trek, Ocean's 31. That cracked me up.
There's another one.
Tony says, I think you guys should do an MST3K riff on this movie. It would be a lot more fun. I think that is a great idea. And with Star Trek wines.
Yeah. Let me when you're done, I have a comment.
Oh, okay. Mark says, has anyone here read the Remo Williams / Destroyer novels? Cure, America's ultimate assassination team, consisted of 3 people, Remo, Chewin, and Mr. Smith.
Just seen the movie, never read the novels.
Mark says, our own Bobby Nash wrote a Remo story. That's true, he did.
Cool.
Sharon says, budget. And Tony says, important question. Was it better than the very short tracks?
Yes.
I was saving that for the end. Holy crap.
5,000%.
Yes. I mean,
No
so
question.
at least it's not worse than those awful, very short tracks.
No, I thought it was a fun movie. And like,
it was fun.
I like Quasi. I like the actor playing Quasi. I thought he was good. And I thought at the end, when they paired up Quasi and Rachel Garrett, I thought they worked really well together for the 4 minutes that we saw them. And I really liked the whole idea of them taking a garbage scow and going off to save the galaxy in a garbage scow. I thought the garbage scow was very well realized. And I liked that whole sequence. And I like I like that. I like our heroes because garbage scows are also like, that was mentioned all the way back in Trouble with Tribble. So I love that they're in a garbage scout. I love they had like the tractor field around it. That we've got no weapons. We've got a tractor beam and garbage, and we're going to go save the day. That kind of thing I like.
That. Yeah. That's something they should have developed more.
Yeah.
That could have been a really good hook for this film.
Yeah.
And for setting up this team, which we'll never see again, but it would have been a nice way to set them up had this been a series.
Right. And I mean, I thought the Mirror Universe ship was good enough for what it was supposed to be. It was a big evil ship. And I kind of like this, like you get in there in the end and San is just this like sad guy on his own. He's going to destroy the universe to try to prove himself to the Empire. You know what I mean? But he's a pitiable figure. And I mean, like I said, he's the most sympathetic character in this movie. So you don't cheer when he dies. But I mean, I don't know.
But even he wasn't written well because he was a borderline genocidal maniac because he was trying to get revenge against everybody. And then again, that at the end when I guess she kind of sort of had him redeem himself, and he said that weird thing about basically you've always shown me who I really am. Like, what are you talking about? I do not. Charles, you've seen, and you and Alan have seen it several times. I didn't even understand. Was he literally trying to say she saved him at the end?
I think that he has just been so broken and enslaved and brainwashed his entire life. Like, you were my high school girlfriend before you burned off my face and enslaved me for my entire life. You're the only person I know, and the last happiness I remember was right before you melted my face.
That's the way it came off, and I didn't know what was going on. I did not understand any of that. It made no sense. Real quick before we get to because this is a thing that came up a lot online too. What is the time fact period we're looking at?
Yeah,
I'm lost.
I have this because
Charles. Yeah, Chuck's got this.
I woke up Saturday morning after I watched this movie, and I wrote, I think 1,800 word chapter for our book, breaking down the timeline for this movie.
I love it
because it's interesting. It's fascinating.
It is.
And I think the movie itself doesn't give you, I mean, I think a lot of people have just assumed a time frame, but it's more complicated than that.
Yep.
But I don't want to spend our last 12 minutes talking about that. But I will say that the star date they give works for two different time periods that are both supported by the movie. And like I broke it down in an excruciating detail in a chapter I wrote. I spent my weekend writing a chapter of our book about. I woke up at 5 a.m. and was just like, I got to start this.
Since you mentioned it, I'm just going to impose a break upon us so that I can run this ad. So if anybody doesn't know what it is that we're talking about, here they go. So yes, we have a new book that's coming out in April. That's the target. And Chuck was so inspired by inconsistencies in this movie that he woke up one morning and wrote a whole new chapter for it. So it's going to be good.
What?
So then briefly to your point, Charles. So what time period would this end? Because Rachel Garrett was born after the time of Kirk from the series, right? Because she died 20 years. Okay, she died in Picard's time, but she actually died in her time. No, not yet. So she died. Yeah, she died 20 years before the time of Picard, even though she died in his time. And if she was like 40, 45, she would have been born sometime 20 years after the time of Kirk, because there's like 75 to 100 years. So I'm lost. And people were like, what time period did she come back into? And then there's confusion because that San also, that he jumped time periods from his mirror universe, that he traveled to the future, and did the fleet from the Empire that was coming into our universe also jump time period?
I'm going to say
you are asking too many questions that we're never going to know answers to.
Yes.
So what I will say is there are two stardate systems on Star Trek. The stardate they give works for two distinct time periods, and they both have almost almost equal evidence in the movie. And so I broke all that down and I told these guys I went full nerd and I broke it down because I don't want to spend the next 9 minutes explaining this, but there are two possibilities and they both have almost equal evidence. And Keith, you have access to an early release of that chapter.
Okay. Because that's what confused me, because Rachel Garrett's age is weird. And then if she came back from the Guardian, and she did, into her own future, then how is he her age? And he also jumped to the same time period. As someone else pointed out, that in canon, Spock is pretty much dismantling the mirror universe right now, but they had a fleet that was coming in, so that I was completely lost, and I hadn't even thought about it at that point in time. That was weird.
I thought about it all night.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so a couple of final comments, and one of them that I really want us to address. Matt says, deep geekery a la Charles. Yes. Mark says, I have two questions. Is Section 31 a good movie? Is Section 31 good Star Trek movie?
No.
Yes and no.
No, it's like I said at the top. If I found this movie on Tubi and it was like an independent production or a Sci-Fi Channel production starring Christopher Judge, I would be like, hey guys, this is a fun movie. You should check this movie out. But as a Section 31 movie, no. As a Star Trek movie, no. As the first Star Trek movie in 9 years and the first Star Trek streaming movie, no. But it's fun in the way that, like, Way to Eden is not a good episode, but I will watch it right now. You know?
Yeah.
I will say, for me, it wasn't a good movie, period. It wasn't a good movie. And again, like I've said many times, I embrace the existence of Section 31. A lot of people don't. I embrace Section 31. I didn't like this portrayal of Section 31. I fundamentally didn't like Giorgio's arc. Whether Michelle Yeoh's a great actress, I just didn't buy that Giorgio. That's not who I'd see somebody who would put Hitler to shame. I just didn't see that. And there was one other thing. Here's the only thing I think. There was like 1 or 2 scenes. This was weird, and it was like it was a different movie. 1 or 2 scenes, and I'm not joking, for maybe 90 seconds, when Michelle Yeoh and Omari Hardwick, and for those who know, he's like in every movie, he's like in everything, right? He's like the guy. They had a moment of drama, and it kind of worked. And I was like, that's the movie I want to see. Then they ruined it by saying he was some kind of freaking augment, something from eugenics. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why that needless connection? He doesn't need to be eugenics war, augment anything.
Right.
Like you said, Charles, just make him a competent operative for Section 31. I did not need that. But every now and then, like if my wife was watching, she said, that was a good scene. It lasted 60 seconds. It's like, well, you had 2 good actors on screen. But then, and then one more thing I want to point out, tell y'all real quick. The guy who played the cyborg, whose name escaped me, I read an interview with the actor. He said, I went off and created a backstory for the character myself.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was no reason why he existed. He's like, yeah. So that tells you something.
And he's a big Star Trek fan. And I mean, he even had an interview before the movie came out where he was, said that he was terrified about the fans' reaction to this movie, which if you know Star Trek and you know this movie, I would be too. And I feel bad that, like, I'm a Star Trek fan. I get to be in a Star Trek movie. And it is, I mean, it's like right now, like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics. Like it is lowest rated already. Which I feel bad for these folks that this movie's getting this reception, but I mean, they didn't put their best foot forward.
Okay. And the last question, this is the one that I wanted us to get to. Sharon asks, what's next in the Star Trek franchise, and is it only up from here? And I think that's a really important question because, we've talked many times about the idea about these standalone movies and how this can be the thing that you can investigate different parts of the Star Trek universe in. And I really hope that this does not spoil getting more of those. I hope that the reaction to this isn't a reaction to doing franchise standalone streaming movies. I hope that that they understand the reaction is to this is a bad one. Yeah. I still want good ones though. I still want these things to happen.
Yeah. I've said many times in this podcast, I would love to see this production team make like streaming movies, like direct to video essentially movies, because they've shown on the television show that they can. And I mean, this is a critical juncture. Like, we don't know what's going to come next, because later this year, the new owners show up. There's new managers. We don't know if they're going to keep the Star Trek franchise as we know it going. We don't know if they're going to stop it and reboot it. We don't know what's going to happen. I think this is a really unfortunate time for them to lay a big egg publicly the way they have, because I would hate for them to look at it and say, wow, like, this is what Star Trek has been producing. Because I hope
hopefully Strange New Worlds season 3 comes along and saves us.
And it does seem like they've sort of rushed everything into production, because they were talking about they're already like writing season 2 of
Starfleet Academy.
Starfleet Academy, and that's like going into production like on the heels of season 1. So I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems to me like, let's get everything moving before the new owners get here, because it's easier to keep filming than it is to start filming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you guys said something very interesting. I completely agree with, because I think there's always a careful thing when you review stuff, because there are people who claim you're just a hater, and we're not. We love Star Trek. It just wasn't very good. And Charles, you said something. I saw Michelle Yeoh on Stephen Colbert's show. She evidently went to a premiere. This is an Oscar-winning actress with decades of work. I mean, I first saw her in kung fu movies like The Heroic Trio. She loved Star Trek. She was so excited doing the press tour. And the dude who plays the cyborg, I got nothing against him. Omari Hardwick, for those who know, Omari Hardwick's like, and every time there's a black movie and they want somebody who's really good looking and muscular, they bring him out. He's in Power and stuff. And for him to jump to this is cool. He's like, cool, I'm doing the Star Trek movie. I don't hate any of the folks, but this is just horrible. And I feel really horrible. Alan asked this earlier, like, will they now say they can't do this? I feel horrible if they come from this, even with all these reviews, if the conclusion is these don't work. Yeah. This is just a badly written one. I'd hate for this to end it somehow. I'd hate that.
Yeah. And we don't hate the new era of Star Trek. And I think that's one thing that's absolutely unique about this film, because you have the people who hate everything Star Trek in this new, and they're giddy right now. Like, this is Christmas. Because we told you they should all be fired. But also you have the people who are big Discovery fans and big Michelle Yeoh fans who have been waiting for this. They're equally upset and disappointed. And then you have mainstream reviewers, and everyone agrees that this ain't it, right? Like, this one did not work. And I mean, people are calling it the worst Star Trek movie. It's beat Star Trek 5 now, which kind of delights me, because I love Star Trek 5 and everyone's been crapping on it for 40 years. So it's got a new bad Star Trek movie, but I wouldn't even consider this in my list of Star Trek movies. This is a separate thing to me.
It is a separate thing. I totally agree.
Because it feels like a TV movie. It feels like this is a pilot. Like, I'm watching a pilot for a TV show that didn't get picked up. And so I don't think it's fair to compare it to the Star Trek movies. It's not a Star Trek movie. But I mean, go back and listen to me waxing poetic about the series finale of Star Trek Discovery, where like on the verge of tears, because I loved it. And so I mean, we don't hate the new stuff, and we don't hate the new people. But my thing moved. But I mean, this is not their best foot forward. I mean, I feel like a teacher saying, this is not your best work. Yeah. Like, I've seen you better than this. You are better than this. And I hope that this doesn't. I mean, whatever the story behind this movie is, because I feel like it's more than just the competencies. They didn't decide to just make a bad movie. Yeah. There's a lot going on behind the scenes of this movie.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot to talk about right now.
Right. And like Mike McMahon has talked about, like, he would get notes on Lower Decks that were like, make sure you're explaining what's going on again, so people who are making dinner can understand. And he's pushing back, saying like, no, everyone who's watching Lower Decks, click the button. Like, I'm just telling my story. Yeah. But that's very much the Netflix philosophy. That you should be on your, like, you should be able to understand the story, even if you're on your phone or doing something else, because they should be continually re-explaining it to you. And I think a lot of that crept into this movie as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think all the worst tendencies came out. All the cliches, like the goofy, joking cyborg is a cliche. Like you said, Charles, from a million and Alan 1980s and 90s sci-fi movies. The little alien creature inside the Spock body, that's Men in Black. The cabaret, the singing, on and on and on. It's like if I didn't know better, I would think it was people who'd never seen Star Trek, honestly. And I thought it would have been, I would think it was another group of people who grew up on Star Wars, and they just threw a Star Trek name on it. So I am kind of stunned, because I actually I saw a review today to what you guys are saying. And one person said about the director, it's like, he's obviously never seen Star Trek.
Oh my God, that's dumb.
Well,
they don't know his name.
Whoever said that has obviously never seen Star Trek, or at least never read the credit of a Star Trek.
Right.
Well, guys,
so
we were up against 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Keep going for another hour. Or let me rephrase this. You guys can keep going for another hour.
Just don't tell me the recording stop. I'll just sit here all night yelling at the microphone.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts before we end up?
Please make more movies, more streaming films, more. Just because this one was bad, please make more.
Agreed.
And keep in mind, if you want to broaden the franchise, you need to retain the fans. Go ahead, Keith. I'm sorry.
That's true. Very true. For me, I think like we all said, I don't hate this movie, but I aggressively didn't like it. It was just, it was sad. It was really kind of sad. I came away going, "Oh, that was so sad." And I just think it was a miss all over the map.
Yeah. All right, well, Keith, where can people find more of you?
If you want to find more, you can find me on Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
How about you, Alan?
Head over to cosmiccreative.com, KOZMIC creative.com. You can jump from there into the podcasts that I do, which are Modern Musicology and Doctor Who A to Z. You can look at all the books that I've written and books that I've published by other authors and get information about the documentary that is in the works.
And how about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
And
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And we'll all be at Stellarfest in Atlanta. Yes. I'm running the Star Trek track. Alan's running the Doctor Who track, and we're going to be doing some stuff together there as well. Stellarfest takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, April, was it 4 through 6?
Yes.
4 through 6. 2025.
I mean, get your hotel room now because they're going to fill up, and we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be just a fan-run convention for the fans.
Yep.
And we should mention... we should mention that along with us, we will also have Mark O'Connell, who was here an episode or two ago, who was one of the writers on Deep Space Nine. He's going to be there. He'll be on some of the Star Trek panels, and he's amazing. So come see him.
He really is.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be
cool.
fun.
All right.
Veronica, do you have a closing for us this week? Meh. I did it for you.
There you go.
All right. Join us next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Actually, I won't be here and Veronica won't be here. Keith and you, Alan, will be here?
I'll be here. Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll do something.
Yeah, Veronica and I will be on a way mission.
Okay. Here's an idea. If you have an idea, if you want to suggest something that Keith and I should talk about next week, I'll put a post up on our Facebook group. Drop a suggestion in the comments.
Let's do it.
All right. And we'll see y'all in a week. Everybody take care. Keep trekking on.